Aspartame could cause memory and learning deficits in future generations, a new study suggests. Industry experts maintain the safety of the low-calorie sweetener, saying facts are important. Who needs facts when you have statistics, right? WHO to declare aspartame a possible carcinogen. Is this the stuff that's in Logan Paul's Prime? The non-sugar, low-calorie sweetener aspartame, which is found in many sugar-free or diet foods and drinks, has been linked to potential problems with memory and learning, according to a study from Florida State University. In the study, which was published in the Journal of Scientific Reports, male mice that consumed aspartame, even at levels deemed safe by the FDA, had offspring that demonstrated spatial learning and memory deficits. Uh-oh. Over a 16-week period, the researchers studied 3 groups of mice. Aspartame defended by industry bought and paid for experts after cancer risk warning. Limited evidence. We skewed the studies. Excuse me. One group consumed 15% of the FDA's maximum recommended daily intake, which is equivalent to 4 sodas. The second group consumed 7%, 2 sodas. And the third group had water. The ones that drank only water were able to find the safe box to escape from the maze much faster than the ones that consumed aspartame. Well, there you go, guys. The study proves it. Aspartame makes you dumb. Sorry, Logan Paul. The aspartame consuming groups eventually completed the task, but they took much longer to do it and sometimes needed extra help. What the freak? What is this? Bleh. I don't know how that happened. All right. Let's just look this up real quick. Okay. According to Google, Prime Hydration, Logan Paul's sports drink, contains aspartame. And according to this new study, the mice that drank aspartame, equivalent to 2 sodas, took much longer to complete the maze than those who did not drink the aspartame. Logan Paul, are you making kids stupid by feeding them aspartame? Logan Paul, do you have a conscience and feel that you've made a mistake selling aspartame to kids when it is now being shown to make people stupid? and possibly give them ass cancer, Logan Paul. You need to think about what you're doing, boy. And if you don't like that, I got 2 words for you. Fight me. Oh, excuse me. That's really bad, huh? Some older customers are staying away from Olive Garden and Cracker Barrel. I used to have a student whose mom worked at Olive Garden, and she said it's the same dough for everything. It's the same dough for the bread, the same dough for the pasta. Everything is one dough. And if it's not heated up and you look at it and, you see what it is, it's just like paste. Even the unlimited breadsticks at Olive Garden and wooden rocking chairs at Cracker Barrel can't seem to lure back the baby boomers. It's been over 3 years since many restaurants closed their doors and customers opted to eat more meals at home because of the COVID pandemic. Now some older customers are still staying away, exacerbating a foot traffic problem faced by the restaurant chains. When it comes to customers over 65, we just have not yet recovered the visits to the extent we thought we would. Older customers got hit by a double whammy. At first they stayed away because of health concerns, and then they stayed away due to inflation. Guys, we're seeing a change of our existence, a change of our society, a change of our lifestyle. This is the new normal where most everything is online. Darden Restaurants, which owns Olive Garden, Longhorn Steakhouse, Cheddar Scratch Kitchen, and others, noted during an analyst call Thursday that it is seeing declining visits from older customers. The customer group that's 55 plus, especially 65 plus, is still below pre-COVID and actually a slight decline from last quarter to this quarter. Traffic's down compared to pre-COVID levels. Well, I guess I can only speak for myself because I only make my own food. But everybody's always talking about the Great Awakening. So maybe people are just not eating out because, they don't want to eat gluten. They don't want to get a stomach ache. They don't want to get cancer. Sorry, Darden. You're going to have to get with the times, Darden Restaurants. Health food. People want health food. Speaking of which, I got to get my restaurant open. And I need customers. If you're into health food, please connect with me. I'm on Long Island. Obesity is becoming more common in a growing number of states, CDC data shows. Obesity is becoming more common in a growing number of states, according to new data. In 2022, 22 states had at least 35% of adults with obesity. Wow. Up from 19 states in 2021. 10 years ago, CDC said no state had an adult obesity prevalence at or above 35%. The new data show prevalence was highest in Louisiana, Oklahoma, and West Virginia, where more than 40% of adults had obesity. Yo, that's almost half. Sheesh. Overall, the prevalence was highest in the Midwest and the South, where about 36% of adults had obesity. In the Northeast and the West, about 30% had obesity in 2022. So it's really not that much of a difference. People like to shit on the Midwest and the South, but it's really not that much of a difference between the Northeast and the West. The new data published Thursday found notable differences in obesity prevalence by race and ethnicity. At least 35% of black adults had obesity in 38 states, and the same was true for American Indian adults in 33 states and Hispanic adults in 32 states. Obesity rates among Asian adults did not exceed 35% in any state, and only 14 states reached that metric for white adults. Obesity rates were lowest among young adults, with about 1 in 5 people aged 18 to 24, considered to have obesity. Rates were about twice as high among adults 45 to 54, with a prevalence of about 2 in 5, according to CDC data. Obesity prevalence was also decreased as the level of education increased. That's still a lot, 20% of people, 18 to 24 obese. Our updated math sent a clear message that additional support for obesity prevention and treatment is an urgent priority. Obesity is a disease caused by many factors, including eating, I would say not patterns, but ingredients, eating habits, physical activity levels, sleep routines, genetics, and certain medications. This means there's no one-size-fits-all approach. They always say that, but you never put anybody on the right menu. I think there is a one-size-fits-all approach, and it's a team menu that solves the worldwide climate change problem and the worldwide disease problem. It's called Life Food Certified. Tory Lanez, prison life's a load of Bologna. I actually went to jail for 8 days. It wasn't prison because we didn't get transferred, but it was jail. I was in the main room, and it was cold cuts every day, and I got sick. One of Tory Lanez's biggest adjustments to prison is going to be in his gut, because instead of eating like a celebrity, he's going to feel more like a grade school kid digging in his lunchbox. TMZ obtained the menu from Tory's first week at North Kern State Prison in Delano, California. And he's been waking up in the morning to grab some beef hash, hard-boiled eggs, hot cereal, milk, and coffee for breakfast. Yo, look at that. Oof. Sheesh. North Kern State Prison. The lunches are peanut butter crackers, sugar-free drinks, and pretty plain sandwiches. We're talking bologna and mustard on whole wheat bread. By the way, it looks like the lunches alternate between bologna sandwiches or cheese sandwiches, aka American cheese on bread. Yeah, it's giving real Fry Fest vibes. Dinner might be his best meal of the day, as he's been getting things like hot link sausages, veggies, coleslaw, red beans, rolls, and canned fruit. TMZ broke the story. Tory checked into the state prison on Tuesday, a month after being sentenced for 10 years for negligent discharge of a firearm, assault with a semi-automatic firearm, and carrying a loaded and unregistered firearm. That seems like a long time. I wonder if he's really getting locked up because he's taking the fall for somebody else. He wasn't all smiles in his mugshot either, as the hugely successful artist will now be making about 30 cents an hour for skilled labor while he's on the inside. You might want to save up that cash for some commissary treats to supplement the cheese and bologna. Oof. Nothing like kicking a man when he's down, eh, TMZ? Institution food is the worst of the worst. That's what Dr. Jubb told me. Jail food, psychiatric institution. You know? It's the worst of the worst as far as the most cancerous. All those...
no annual fee.
All those, cold cuts. Cake sold at Walmart recalled over undeclared allergen. Cake slices sold at Walmart stores nationwide are being recalled because they have an undeclared allergen and could pose a serious risk to some customers. Yo. David's Cookies issued a recall after being alerted that 960 units of its Market-Side Ultimate Peanut Butter Chocolate Cake Slices were mislabeled as Market-Side Chocolate Chip Explosion Cake Slices, according to a notice posted by the Food and Drug Administration. Okay. That's why it's the peanut. As a result, the label on the cake does not depict peanut as a key ingredient. It does not declare the peanut allergen warning on the label. And that can kill someone. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, peanuts are among the 8 foods or food groups that account for the most serious allergic reactions in the U.S. The symptoms and severity can be different. In some cases, you can have anaphylaxis, which is a sudden and severe allergic reaction that may cause death. Naturally and artificially flavored. I mean, you really got to artificially flavor a piece of cake? Seriously, come on, guys. Walmart's distribution center that was distributing the mislabeled product has been identified. Both companies will continue to work together to prevent further shipments to stores. Let's prevent further junk food. Let's go, team. Let's make it healthy stuff. Rebirth of Norway cider tradition. Let's go. I think I might have to get some. There's a belief that some form of cider was made by Vikings in Norway, and today its growing popularity has people convinced it's the country's national drink. Now, I want you to be open-minded, said Ann Gunn Rosvold, a tour food guide with Bergen Base Camp in Bergen, a city along the southwestern fjord region of Norway. Because you probably don't expect to drink this in Norway, but I'm going to let you try Norwegian cider. Cider made from fermented apple juice is not something I'd expect the Norwegians to be drinking. It's more common in the British Isles and coastal parts of France, particularly in Normandy. But as she explained, it's been part of the culture for a while. In fact, possibly since the time of the Vikings. The first recorded production dates back to the Roman Empire, when it was made from native European crab apples, which grew wild through the continent. The definitive origin of this fizzy-alcoholic drink is disputed, however. Some claim the Celtic Britons invented the drink after the Romans introduced the cultivation of crab apples around 50 CE, but others believe that some apple-based drinks were made long before that. Officially, cider was introduced from England by monks in the Middle Ages, but there's a belief that some form of cider was made even by the Vikings because they believed apples to have special god powers. Apple a day. In popular mythology, the goddess Idun supplied apples to the gods to preserve their youth and immortality. Without her and her apples, the gods of Asgard would face threats of aging and death. As a symbol for life, fertility, and knowledge, it's no wonder that this humble fruit had such a place in history. The Vikings regarded apples as a treasure. Native European crab apples would have been available to the Vikings through foraging, and with access to apples, there's no doubt that the Vikings definitely made things with apples, explained Ellen Marie Nace, an archaeologist and lecturer from Oslo's Museum of Cultural History. We know they love to drink alcohol, and it's likely they made something similar to cider with the apples. But the apples they had were native crab apples, and they are not very good, so the Vikings would have used honey to sweeten it. Although as soon as you put honey in, it becomes mead, not cider, technically. Could they have also made something without honey that could be classified as cider? Probably, we don't know for sure. Although the idea of Vikings making cider is only a probability, there's proof that cider was produced and sold as early as the 13th century in Norway, when Cistercian monks who immigrated from England planted and introduced the cultivation of apples in the Hardanger Fjord region. They taught fjord farmers how to grow and maintain the orchards, kick-starting a passion for apple products, and among them was the celebrated cider. Little did they know that they had unintentionally chosen one of the best spots in the country for this task. The microclimate of the fjords turned out to be ideal for apples. 40% of all Norwegian fruit today is grown in this region. The apples are known to be so good that the award-winning cider made from Hardanger is considered to be the champagne of apple cider and was granted protected geographical indication status in 2009. A European food and drink quality label that protects a product of heritage from being copied outside its production geography. Cider remained popular for many centuries until Norway placed stricter laws against the sale of alcohol in 1921 to curb alcoholism. The country banned private production and sales of alcohol, and it created a government-owned monopoly of the market called Vinmonopolet. That's interesting. The Vinmonopolet controlled the sales and production of any beverage with alcohol content over 4.9%. This had a big impact on the cider industry, as cider generally contained a higher percentage of alcohol. Eventually, the population lost interest, although the idea that cider became unpopular might not have been all Vinmonopolet's doing. Even before, ciders grew out of date, with more people leaning towards beers, mostly because crab apples were not particularly nice, even after being made into cider. But cider's making a comeback, and it's good. Even I'm surprised. And that brings us back to the surprise taste of Norwegian cider. With the increased cultivation of different apple varieties, young producers have been stirring up a cider revolution, using traditional knowledge and methods with a mix of creativity to create fresh new tastes in cider. That looks good. With this newfound enthusiasm, Norwegian cider continues to gain status with gold and silver wins at various international cider awards, the most recent being the Nordic International Cider Awards held in Bergen in 2022. Okay. In this industry that continues to grow with passion and pride, cider gained a festival in its honor in 2019. Every May, the Hardanger International Cider Fest attracts cider producers and enthusiasts to celebrate all things cider. Every May, though, really? Shouldn't it be in the fall? Or because the cider's got a cure for the year. All right, let's finish up with a reading from Dr. Jubb on jubdavid.com. "52 minutes ago. I guess you gotta go with this one, right? A new reset is transparency. All is equal under the law. Which is an alliance of law movement's mission to assist clear up usury and legal name fraud, and common law trespass. Political concept of transparency engages private investors obtained for that purpose of some timed information. Yet accountability to we the people is you and I being given consideration. Proper consent exists, and this is the core condition of a new reset, as currency is positively inducted, not negatively. Complex relation is broken by a monopoly, you'd agree, so you cannot see, per se, what's going on. So one nation spies on another nation because it's not lawful to spy in your own nation. All such information is collected backdoored to one war room, which, by strategic partnership in funding all corps, owns and controls all satellite. So one enemy corps satellite can be used for war against another. In a system under the big MIC, no created trust exists, does it? Military Industrial Corp. A new reset is of a proper efficiency, decentralized as a model in nature. To have a transparency, you should know what you're being given. A doctor who's a friend of mine wanted to give his license back in Norway for the reason that he couldn't dispense at the hospital as usual because his patients didn't want what he would read as the insert and patients wouldn't want it. So today, it is you, don't do harm under the CARES Act. Modern medicine is without a soul under the corpse. No informed consent exists. You can't give a license back. You have to be dismissed instead. An emergency created isn't reported in an asymmetric war, was it? Was it? So, just like one nation's satellite that has DEW paints a target with pulsed advanced targeting with an invisible range that is then blocked by blue, many times more powerful than 100 kilowatt range is definite. So even if a smaller amount as 10 kilowatt reached the ground, as some does, it would ignite instantly, all pulsed in an area, all done under 3 minutes. Only it takes a bit less than 9 seconds for metal to melt. To do an area the size of the Lahaina fire, it could all be done by laser in certainly less than 3 minutes. China launches 48,000 kilo payload, and at least 70 of CCP satellite have gigawatt laser, hundreds of times more powerful than what's said. Forensics, looking at linguistic analysis, shows more stress of a hive mind present to a memed transient perception falsely. Such is not a normal logarithm, yet predictable to be about an extreme, unusual event that's coming. You and I have an all-or-nothing phenomenon. A message gets passed on if it has 78% of your nervous system behind it. Cognition is passed to action, yet not unless that threshold exists. Otherwise, an inhibited, dissociated, incongruent, non-integrated, invisible condition internally is, where parts inside could have other than have good alignment. So as far as satellites crossing over Hawaii at the time of the fires, 8 have been tracked. The first fire started at 10:47, August the 7th, as NORAD 53299 passed overhead. Then the other fire, which started on August the 8th at 6:37 a.m. overhead, was a NORAD satellite CCP 55836. And the third fire, if you look into it, you can see the same thing going on. It's a black swan of your nation is compounded by false statement and modeling. For instance, no transparency exists. A method that was used to get a pandemic going was stopped because that modeling was questioned. Yet, the same modeling is used to kick off 2020. What's COVID? You're looking at what's timed to interfere with voting, and it's a transparency about such. So internal spying is done outside the nation. So unless change exists, such a monopoly CB Cowo controllers have for a grey war room to use the corporate infrastructure as a weapon to achieve its goals, not anything for we the people. If transparency is, and no enemy corpse was yet merging a ledger with an enemy corpse, and private property mined and data stolen from we the people to have been on-sold, no transparency existed about such. Would you agree? And strategic partnership like the DHLS, FEMA, United Nations, BIS, all funded to get involved in emergency private controlled corporation to assist afterward. To control we the people afterward forever. 8 satellite was it that passed over Hawaii to track CCP satellites? Does this coincide with the inferno that started on the 7th and the 8th? Under 3 minutes would be all that's needed of an invisible ray. And for burn time to correlate with destruction, the same pattern was seen burned in paradise. Should consideration be forensically to stop such a criminal pattern already correlated with past nefarious events? Isn't it time for an Article 4 and 3 court? Or, in other nations, a king's bench? Love, Jub David.